Hello everybody. Hi there, welcome to Wildlife Wednesday. I'm your host for today, Ryan Godfrey, and we're here to talk about swallowtail butterflies. How exciting! Finally, an insect being featured. We got 6 legs instead of 4 today. Now, we've got the chat working, so if you want to say hi to me, say hi in the chat. I'd love to see your hellos coming in during my introduction. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about these swallowtail butterflies for a little while. And make sure you pay close attention because we'll have trivia later on, and also be doing question and answer. So that's where you want to put your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them during Q&A. And if we don't get to them right away, there we go. I can see you saying hi and everything. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, great. So, start by introducing myself. Again, my name is Ryan Godfrey. I'm a botanist, so that means I study plants, and I did a master's degree actually in ecology and evolutionary biology, studying evening primroses of all things. And I've studied plants in the wild. I have also worked in museums, in herbarium collections, at botanical gardens. I have been an environmental consultant, and now I'm working here at WWF in the Nature Connected Communities team, where I work on a project called In the Zone, which is all about gardening with native plants so that we can create habitat for wildlife, including pollinators, including wonderful butterflies, including even swallowtail butterflies, right at home. And I do this right out on my balcony over here. And I get lots and lots of pollinators out there all summer long. In my little containers because I grow native plants. So that's what In the Zone is all about. And there's lots of resources on there for you to learn more about how to grow wildlife habitat right at home. Okay, so what about swallowtails? So, first of all, you may be wondering why a botanist is here to talk about insects. Well, it turns out that insects, and especially flowering plants, have very, very close coevolutionary relationships that go back hundreds of thousands of years. So, really, talking about one, learning about one without knowing about the other is kind of meaningless in an evolutionary sense. They're so important for each other. Their life cycles are linked. It would be like learning about predators but not learning anything about prey. So over my time studying plants, I've encountered lots and lots of different insects as well, and I always get particularly excited when I see a swallowtail butterfly. And the reason for that is that this group of butterflies they're big, they're large, up to like big, and they're colorful. Some of them have stripes. Many of them have eye spots. Many of them have colorful blue or red markings around the edges of their wings. And the reason that they get their name, swallowtails, is because they also have little extensions off the hind wing, the back of the hind wing, and those little lobes kind of make them look like a swallow, the bird, with a forked tail. So when they're flying, they kind of look a little bit like a swallow. So that's where they got the name swallowtails. Now in Canada, there are between 12 and 14 species of swallowtails native to the region, depending on who you ask. And although none of those species are listed in the Species at Risk Act as either threatened or endangered, it has been noticed by entomologists that the populations of swallowtail butterflies are declining. They have been declining for several decades, and in most cases, that's attributed to habitat loss, which is true for lots of wildlife species. And in particular, for swallowtails and other butterflies, that habitat loss is especially it's the loss of their host plants, which are native plants. So, I mean, that's obviously very sad and tragic, but the amazing thing about that is that if we put the plants back in our gardens and in our habitats, then the swallowtails can come back too. So it's really a good news story. Um, so I wanted to give you some fun kind of stories about swallowtails because they're, as I say, very, very cool creatures. Each one of the swallowtails has a special host plant. Like I mentioned, they have those tight coevolutionary relationships. So for example, the spicebush swallowtail, has its host plant is called spice bush. Very creative stuff there. Spice bush, actually one of my very favorite plants of all times because it smells so lovely. When walking through the field, they live in deciduous understory, and if you brush up against them, they smell, oh, it's intoxicating. Sweet and floral, and I just love it. I always rub the leaves and kind of get it all up in my nose. I love, love, love spice bush, and I love to see a spice bush swallowtail caterpillar as well, which they look like little snakes almost. And then the butterfly itself, again, a gorgeous, glossy, dark colored butterfly with blue on the undersides of the wings. So beautiful, beautiful. That's one example. The giant swallowtail is another example that its host plants are all in the citrus family. So we have two native species here in southern Ontario, which are the hop tree and the prickly ash. I don't like prickly ash so much because it scratches me, but it also smells nice. I have to say, overall, the swallowtail butterflies are connoisseurs of nice smelling plants. Their host plants all smell really nice, so if you plant them in your garden, you'll have a nice smelling garden. So that's a benefit. Um, what else do I have to say? Okay, I want to tell you the story about the first time that I saw a giant swallowtail butterfly. Now, this is an uncommon to rare species in Canada, and it's really only seen in extreme southern Ontario. And just last summer, I was actually on a lunch break in downtown Toronto, where my office is located, and I went out for a walk and I spotted this brown thing floating about um, in the middle of the street, dodging cars, and it was big enough that I was like, oh, that could be a swallowtail butterfly. So I started running along the sidewalk, chasing it down, watching it flap up and down, and I saw yellow stripes along the back. And oh my gosh, that's when I knew this has got to be a giant swallowtail. So I followed it, and it landed in a community garden, actually landed on a tomato plant where I was able to get up close enough to take a picture and confirm that it was in fact a giant swallowtail butterfly right in, I mean, between the traffic and the buildings, and of course, it landed in a garden. Now, the kind of sad thing is that I happen to know that there aren't really any hop trees or prickly ash in downtown Toronto. So if this was a female butterfly, it's unlikely that she was able to find a host plant to lay her eggs on. So that was kind of the end of the road for that particular butterfly in this case. But if that community garden and if gardens all over Canada included the host plants for these creatures, then they'd be able to fulfill their entire life cycle, and we'd have helped them grow habitat and grow their populations and grow nature. Um, so I have one more story about swallowtails. It's one of my favorites. It's an evolutionary story about something called Muellerian mimicry. So this is when one creature is poisonous or otherwise kind of scary, and another creature mimics the poisonous one without actually being poisonous itself. And in so doing, it becomes more survivable. Its predators will not eat it as much, but it doesn't really have to do all the work of becoming poisonous. So one of the swallowtails is called Pipevine swallowtail, and it eats a plant called Pipevine. And Pipevine is a poisonous plant that has a chemical in it called aristolochic acid. Okay, and most creatures, if they ate aristolochic acid, including you or me, would get really sick and maybe die. But the pipevine swallowtail caterpillar is able, it has a magical superpower. I love this. Okay, so it eats the thing, and instead of dying, it becomes poisonous itself. It actually brings that poison into its body tissues, and it keeps that in its body tissues as it metamorphoses into an adult butterfly. And so, if anything tries to eat it, then it will die. So they have that protection that they really stole, thanks very much, from the pipevine. Now, here comes the Muellerian mimicry. In the same range as the pipevine swallowtail lives the black swallowtail and the spicebush swallowtail, and those two look superficially kind of similar to a pipevine. So they're all kind of dark, glossy colors, but those other two species the black and the spice bush, do not actually have aristolaucic acid in their tissues. They can't consume it as caterpillars. So they're not poisonous. They could be eaten, but because they are mimicking the pipevine swallowtail, they get the benefit of less predation because their predators are kind of freaked out. Oh, it's a dark looking swallowtail. I'm not going to eat that. Um, Now, fascinatingly, the last part of the story, the part that I love the most, is that the Canada tiger swallowtail, one of the most striking species with yellow and black stripes, its range overlaps in the south with the pipeline plant and the pipeline swallowtail, but in the north part of its range, there is no pipevine and there is no pipeline swallowtail. And if you go to the southern part of its range, you will see that tiger swallowtails, some of them, instead of having that yellow and black striping pattern, they're just black. They're black all the way across. So they're doing that Muellerian mimicry thing again. They don't eat the pipevine, but they're piggybacking. But in the northern part of their range, you never see that black morph. It does not exist. And I could tell you why I think that's the case, but maybe I'd rather that you think about that and hang on to it for the Q&A and the trivia section that's coming up a little bit later. Okay, so let's go to Q&A. Let's do that. I'm gonna now look through and see what all of you wonderful people have for questions. And please, I can see these coming in. So let me know what you've got. I see here from Laurence, I see, are monarch butterflies a kind of swallowtail? Great question, Laurence. Thanks very much for that. Well, let's think about it. Okay, picture a monarch butterfly in your mind. It is a colorful butterfly. It is a fairly large butterfly, but does it have those extensions on the hind wings? No, it does not. So it is not a swallowtail butterfly, but it does, much like swallowtails and really all butterfly species, it does have a host plant. That host plant is milkweed, of course, and famously, recently, lots of people were encouraged to plant or to keep milkweed in their gardens to help bolster monarch populations. So it's just the exact same kind of thing that we're talking about here with the swallowtails and their host plants. So, so it's, although it's not, there's the same but different, basically. Same but different. Okay. Um, Anthony. Anthony says, I've always wanted to know if butterflies have lungs. Do they have lungs? Okay, so this is fascinating. Actually, no insects have lungs. They don't. Um, all they have is the only tube, they have a couple of tubes that go through their body, but they're digestive. So they don't have an air tube that goes like we do. What they have instead they don't have it from their mouth. What they have instead are these things called spiracles, which are, you've seen that insects have segmented bodies, and at each of those segments there are little holes, and they can kind of twist their bodies and open those holes up, and they actually breathe into little air sacs that come in from those holes and diffuse right into their bloodstream, which is pretty darn cool if you ask me. So yeah, that's how that works out. Okay, I've got a question from Jonah. Do swallowtail butterflies migrate south during the winter like monarchs? The answer is it kind of depends on the species. So some are northern residents, so they will actually overwinter either as pupae, so the chrysalis form, mostly in the undergrowth, the leaves, so that's how they kind of stay warm, warmish over the winter. But some of them do go south, and so that's the answer to that. It sort of depends on the species, and it depends on where you are at. Yeah, indeed. Okay, just checking out for a couple more questions. Wants to know, are there invasive butterflies in Canada? Oh, that's actually Jared. Great question, Jared. I don't believe so. One that I did learn about is it's called the Old World Swallowtail, which is not invasive, but it's present all across the circumboreal um, part of the planet. So it is present in Canada, across to Europe as well. So it's in both continents and different subpopulations. But as far as I know, I don't think that there's yet an invasive swallowtail butterfly. Um, okay, what else have we got? Maybe I'll take just one more question. Reading through here. Do, 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 do. Okay, Alexandra says, can you tell the difference between male and female swallowtail butterflies? Again, the answer depends on species. Um, and in many guides, you'll see one wing that's a male wing and one wing that's a female wing. In general, the females are a little bit bigger, but actually my favorite way to tell the difference is not by looking at their color patterns, because that can be a little bit challenging, but rather is to look at their behavior. So females, um, their real goal in life is to find their host plant and lay eggs. That's what they're up to. They are single-minded, so they're landing on plants. They're tasting with their feet, which is what they do. So they'll walk around and they'll go, that's not my host plant, and they'll go off and they'll sort of just. But you can see they're like that. Whereas male swallowtails, their whole goal in life is to mate. That's what they want to do. So they want to find females, and they kind of are a bit territorial. So you'll see them kind of flapping around with other butterflies, whether they're male and they're kind of saying like, hey, this is my space, get out of here, or it's a female and they're trying to mate. So that's my favorite way to tell the difference, is the behavioral mechanism. All right, let's now transition to our trivia section. So I'm going to give you a question, and then I'm going to look for your answers, okay? Let's start with the first one. I'm going to give you an easy one. In Canada, how many swallowtail butterfly species are native in Canada? Can we find in Canada? Okay, I'll repeat the question. In Canada, can you please tell me approximately, you could give a range if you like, how many swallowtail species um, can you find in Canada? Let's see who can answer this question. And by the way, I'll just mention that one of the ways that swallowtail butterflies and many insects are being affected by climate change is that their ranges are moving north. So they can live further north because winters are more subtle. And so we may end up getting a few more species of swallowtail butterflies as climate change progresses, but it would be really important if we want those to survive that they'll have to have their host plants. So again, plant those native plants, folks. All right, I'm seeing answers coming in 14, 10, 12 to 14. It's all those numbers, we're in the right general vicinity. The answer is between 12 and 14 species, depending on who you ask, whether you're a lumper or a splitter. Do you like to lump things into one species, or do you like to split things out into multiple subspecies? Okay, let's do question number 2. Which of Canada's swallowtail species is the largest of them? Which one is the largest? I may not have said this explicitly, but I did give you the name of it. I did mention the name, and it's kind of a giveaway, I would say. Can probably take an educated guess. So which one of Canada's swallowtail species is the largest of all of the butterflies? Let's see. I think you can guess this. Okay, I have an answer coming in from Resolute member saying giant. Steph Nickel also says giant. It's a pretty good guess. Pretty good guess that they put giant in the name. Emily Giles thinks giant. Jared thinks giant. Laurence thinks giant. Is correct. That is correct. It is not a misnomer. The giant swallowtail, especially the females, are really friggin' huge butterflies. It's really quite amazing to see them. Yep, you got it. You guys are all getting it. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, Um, what is the name of the chemical that pipevine swallowtail caterpillars eat to make their bodies poisonous to predators? All right, I will repeat the question. What is the name? Can you tell me the name of the chemical that pipevine swallowtail caterpillars consume and incorporate into their own bodies to become poisonous to predators? And mostly I wanted to ask this question to see how you would spell it because I'm very curious to see that. It's a real magical superpower. I mean, like I ate a salad last night and I didn't become poisonous. It would be kind of cool if I could do that. I see pipeline. Pipeline is a really great answer, but that's not the correct answer, unfortunately. That is not the correct answer. Pipeline. Come on, let's throw them out there. Pipevine. Pipevine is the plant. The pipevine is the plant, but it's not the chemical. The chemical is what I'm looking for. The name of the chemical. And oftentimes, if you're a botanist, it's kind of cheating because pipeline, I'm getting pipelines and pipeline. This was a hard question. Okay, see the scientific name, oftentimes the chemical is discovered after the plant is discovered. And so typically they will name the chemical after the plant that it was found in, but they'll do it using the scientific name, okay? So the scientific name of the pipevine, it's a genus which includes many species, but the genus is called Aristolochia. And if you, oh my gosh, Jared, wow, okay, there we are. Aristolochic acids. Love that. That is correct. And even spelled correctly. Aristolochic. Yep, Steph Nickel got it too. Amazing. Amazing. Y'all are smart. Aristo something, says Christopher. You got it. Yep, indeed. Indeed. Okay. I think that's gonna wrap it up. I'm getting up to my time here. So although I did have more questions for you, we'll end on a high note. Um, with that really challenging one. So I'm just going to wrap up by saying thank you very much for joining on this episode of Wildlife Wednesday. Next week, we'll be doing it again, and it's going to be my colleague Rinjin who's going to be talking about snow leopards. Oh my gosh, we're back to four legs, fluffy things instead of six legs and flittery things. And that's okay by me. So tune in next Wednesday to learn more about these lovely kitty cats. And in the meantime, if you thought this whole concept of growing native plants, building habitat for wildlife in your garden is kind of a cool thing, um, there are some things that you can do. So if you happen to be living in West Toronto, we're running a pilot project called Project Swallowtail. You can visit projectswallowtail.ca to learn more about that, sign up, and our goal is to get native plants to people and restore habitat right here in the city. We're going to see what it looks like to bring nature back into an urban environment. How fascinating. If you don't happen to be in that particular geography, but you are in Ontario's Carolinian zone, you could visit inthezonegardens.ca, learn more about growing native plants, and really, no matter where you are, you can grow the native plants of your region. And perhaps a good place to visit to learn more about that outside of the Carolinian zone could be the North American Native Plant Society. They have a lot of resources and can especially get you connected to native plant nurseries that specialize in plants close to home. Um, and oh, finally, I'll just say that we're doing a series of webinars. If you want to see more of my face and some other faces talking about plants and gardens and whatnot, it's the Garden for Wildlife webinar series. The first one happened yesterday. Next one is happening on Saturday, and there's going to be a total of 6 of them. So tune in and enjoy. All right. Thanks very much, everybody, for learning about swallowtails and plants with me. That was a lot of fun. Cheers. Have a great day.